You don't really expect to feel invisible to the people you gave your whole life to, but that's exactly how I felt that morning at the airport, like background furniture in a house I built. I'm 69 years old, widowed, retired, and still holding on to my independence with both hands. I've always prided myself on being generous, sometimes too generous, if I'm being honest. And I'll admit it, I thought kindness was something people noticed, remembered, but I was wrong. It started 2 months ago. My son Daniel and his wife Melissa had been talking about a family trip to Maui, spring break for the kids, a chance to reconnect. Melissa had been dropping hints like leaves in autumn. It's just so expensive these days, and we want to go, but tickets for four really add up. So, like the sentimental fool I can be, I offered to treat the whole family. 5 round trip tickets. Not cheap, but I dipped into my savings and smiled while doing it. After all, memories matter more than money, right? I booked everything myself, the flights, the hotel, even a shared ride from the airport in Maui to the resort. Paid for checked bags, extra legroom, and made sure they had the seats they liked. I told them I'd meet them at my place the morning of the flight, and we'd all head to the airport together. Daniel said they'd pick me up at 6 a.m. sharp. I packed light, just a rolling carry-on, my meds, some trail mix, and a fresh set of clothes for the island breeze. I even wore the lavender sweater Michael, my late husband, always said made me look soft but mighty. That morning, I stood on the porch with my suitcase and a hopeful heart. 6 came, then 6:15, then 6:40. I called Daniel, straight to voicemail. No texts, no missed calls, nothing. I finally flagged down a cab. My driver, a kind Nigerian man named Tunde, asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. By the time I got to the airport, my stomach had twisted itself into a tight knot. I sent a message in our group chat, at gate B12. Let me know when you're nearby. No response. I sat and waited, staring at the boarding screen. At 8:07 a.m., Melissa finally texted back. We already went through security. Sorry. That was it. No, we tried to wait. No, we didn't know you were coming alone. Just sorry. And in that moment, something inside me stopped twisting and simply snapped into place. I wasn't angry yet. Not quite. But I felt a cold, sharp clarity I hadn't felt in years. They left me behind. After I paid for every single ticket, like I was excess luggage. And in that moment, I realized something. Maybe it was time they learned what it felt like to be left behind. Stared at that message. We already went through security, sorry, like it was written in a different language. No explanation, no concern, just sorry. I should have cried, should have shaken or called a friend. But I didn't. Something inside me went still, like the calm before a hurricane. And suddenly, all those little memories, Melissa's side eyes, Daniel's dismissive tone, the way they barely thanked me when I booked the trip, snapped together like puzzle pieces I'd been too tired to put together before. I looked up at the departure screen. Flight 648 to Maui, boarding in 35 minutes. I stood up, straightened my lavender sweater, and wheeled my carry-on to the airline counter. The woman at the desk wore one of those tight airport smiles you only learn after years of rude passengers. Her name tag read Cassie. Good morning, I said, polite but steady. I'm on the 10:20 flight to Maui. I need to make some changes. She nodded. Sure. Can I see your ID? I handed it over. She typed for a few seconds, then said, Okay, I see your reservation. You're traveling with 4 others? Yes, I said, letting the word rest heavy. My son, his wife, and their 2 kids. I paid for all 5 tickets. She nodded again, eyes scanning the screen. Looks like the other 4 passengers have checked in, but haven't boarded yet. Perfect. I'd like to upgrade my ticket to first class, I said calmly. And I'd also like to cancel the other 4 tickets under my reservation. She paused, blinked, and looked up. Ma'am, you want to cancel all 4 tickets? Yes. Her eyes flicked across the screen again. Well, since you're the primary on the reservation and you booked all 5, and the other tickets haven't been used or boarded yet, you can cancel them. The refund or credit would go to the original payment method. That's me. I said, do it. She gave me the tiniest smile, like she knew somehow what was happening, and clicked a few keys. Just confirming. Full refund for 4 economy seats and checked baggage. Your seat has been upgraded to 2A in first class. I nodded. Send the confirmation to my email. As she typed, I leaned in just a little and added, if they come back to the desk confused, please let them know the reservation was canceled by the cardholder. No further explanation necessary. Cassie didn't say a word, but the little nod she gave me said enough. As I walked away, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, light. Like shedding a heavy coat I didn't realize I'd been wearing. I stopped at a coffee shop near the gate and ordered a cappuccino, sat down by the window with the morning sun pouring in, and I waited. About 15 minutes later, I spotted them, Daniel with his carry-on, Melissa on her phone, the kids dragging little backpacks behind them, confused, frustrated. They walked up to the gate agent, and I watched from behind my cup as heads tilted and voices rose slightly. The agent gestured toward the counter. Melissa's mouth opened in shock. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. I didn't need to hear a word to know the conversation. They'd been left behind. And I was boarding soon. I stood when my group was called. First class always boards first. As I passed the gate, Daniel turned and caught sight of me, his mouth open like he wanted to say something. I smiled, soft and calm, and walked right past him. First class is its own kind of quiet. Wide seats, warm towels, coffee served in real cups, not paper. The flight attendant called me ma'am, like it meant something again. And as the plane soared above the clouds, I leaned back, pulled the blanket over my lap, and allowed myself, for the first time in years, to just be. No little voices asking for snacks, no Melissa's sharp sighs, no Daniel on his phone, tuning me out. Just me, the soft hum of the engine, and a hot cup of respect I bought for myself. When we landed in Maui, the air felt like freedom, humid, sweet, and full of the kind of energy that wraps around your bones like a warm bath. I took my time collecting my bag, waved off the rental car rep who offered to carry it, and stepped into the sunlight with nothing waiting for me except a hotel reservation in my name. Because here's what they also didn't know. I hadn't just booked one big suite for all of us. No, I booked 2 rooms, one for the family and a separate ocean view room for myself. I wasn't born yesterday. I know what Melissa's sideways glances mean. The last time we stayed together, she called me needy for asking if I could watch a movie with them. That night, I'd cried in the guest room while they laughed downstairs. So this time, I had a balcony and peace. At check-in, the woman at the front desk looked surprised when I asked to release the other room. "Oh, the family suite?" she asked. "They're due to check in today too, right?" I smiled. "Change of plans. Just me now. Cancel the second room, please." She nodded, typing, then hesitated. "There's a non-refundable clause for day of cancellations." "That's all right," I said, digging out my wallet. "I don't mind paying for space I don't need." Because that's exactly what they had made me feel like for years. Unneeded. I spent the afternoon soaking my feet in the pool, sipping pineapple juice from a glass rimmed with sugar, and letting my phone buzz in the background like distant thunder. 23 missed calls from Daniel, 12 from Melissa, a few from a number I didn't recognize, probably the airline, or maybe their Uber driver when they realized the resort reservation had mysteriously vanished. Around 6 p.m., as the sun began to dip golden and low, I finally answered the phone. "Mom, where are you?" Daniel's voice was tight. Not worried, annoyed. "In Maui," I said simply. "What the hell happened? The airline said you canceled our tickets." "I did," I said, calm as a breeze. "You left me behind. Figured it was my turn." "You what? You can't just cancel people's—" "You didn't wait for me," I cut in. after I paid for everything. So I paid for my peace instead. Turns out I like the exchange rate better. There was a long pause on the line. Then Melissa's voice came faintly in the background. I told you she was going to do something. I smiled. You still in the airport? I asked lightly. Silence. You should have waited. I hung up. Then I ordered room service, grilled mahi-mahi, roasted pineapple, and a slice of coconut cake. I ate on the balcony in my bathrobe with the waves crashing below and thought to myself, let them find out what it feels like when someone they rely on decides to put herself first. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of waves and zero regrets. I slipped into a light blue sundress, tied a scarf around my hair, and headed down to the pool with a paperback and my favorite oversized sunglasses, the kind that let you see without being seen. By 9 a.m., I was settled in a cushioned lounger under a palm tree. A fresh towel, a cold drink, the quiet, bliss. Until about 9:17, I heard them before I saw them. Daniel's voice was sharp, frustrated. Melissa's tone clipped and short, the way it always gets when things don't go her way. The kids were whining in that hungry, that tired way kids get when they've been dragged around for hours. I peeked over the top of my book. There they were. Melissa's hair was frizzy and pulled into a messy ponytail, her shirt wrinkled, no makeup, not her usual polished self. Daniel looked like he hadn't slept, and both kids had that chaotic, overtired energy that makes strangers slowly migrate to the other side of the pool. They were at the front desk, trying to get a room. Again, I watched as the clerk shook her head politely. I knew what she was saying. No availability. Because the resort was fully booked this week. I knew that because I called to ask when I planned this trip. It wasn't an accident. About 10 minutes later, they came through the pool gates. Daniel scanned the chairs until his eyes landed on me. I raised my glass and gave a small wave. He walked over. Mom, he started, standing awkwardly at the foot of my lounger. Can we talk? I nodded, keeping my sunglasses on. Sure. Sit. He pulled over a chair. Melissa stayed back with the kids, pacing. We didn't mean to leave you, he said, voice low. We just figured you'd meet us at the gate. Melissa said you'd be fine. I smiled. Melissa was wrong, he exhaled sharply. Okay, I admit, we messed up, but canceling our tickets? That was harsh. Was it? I asked, folding my book shut and resting it on my lap. You left me at the airport without a text or a second thought after I paid for the whole trip, so I made a different choice. I chose to enjoy it alone. But the kids, I said gently but firmly, are watching everything, including how you treat your mother. His face changed at that, a flicker of shame. But then, predictably, it passed. Look, he said, shifting gears, we need a place to stay. The hotel's full. Can the kids at least stay with you? We'll figure something out. I tilted my head. Didn't you book a backup plan? He stared at me, blank. No? He rubbed his eyes, already sunburned on his nose. Come on, Mom. Be reasonable. I leaned forward slightly and said quietly enough so only he could hear, You gave me reason the moment you treated me like I didn't matter. I may be your mother, but I'm not your doormat. Then I handed him a folded piece of paper I had tucked in my beach bag. He took it, confused, and opened it. A reservation for a budget motel 30 minutes inland. 1 room, double beds. I had made the backup myself. Days ago. You're not completely stranded, I said, sipping my drink. But you'll have to manage on your own. He looked up at me, stunned. Why would you do this? Because, I said, sliding my sunglasses down just enough for him to see my eyes, I always think ahead. I'm a mother. It's what we do. But I'm also a woman, and I'm done being ignored. He stood there a moment longer, then walked away, the paper still in his hand. Melissa barely looked at me as they left the pool area with the kids. And me? I ordered lunch. Poolside burger, extra fries. And when the server asked if I'd like to charge it to the room, I said, with pleasure. That night, the ocean breeze sang through my balcony curtains. I had just finished a long soak in the tub and was sipping chamomile tea when I heard it. A knock at the door. Not urgent. Just steady. I froze for a second. The resort is gated. No one could have just wandered in. I slipped on my robe, padded to the door, and checked the peephole. Daniel? Alone. I opened the door but didn't move aside. Mom, he said quietly, can I come in? I hesitated, then nodded, stepping aside. He looked tired, really tired, like grief had finally caught up with him. We sat across from each other at the small table near the window. I'm sorry, he said, before I could ask. Not just for the airport, for everything, for how I've made you feel these past few years. My eyes welled, but I didn't let the tears fall. I stayed still, watching, listening. He swallowed. Melissa and I, we've been struggling for a long time. Money, the kids, everything. And I guess I've been letting her call the shots, even when it comes to you. I nodded slowly. I noticed. I didn't mean to make you feel like baggage, but you weren't wrong to feel that way. I looked down into my tea. Why now, Daniel? Why this trip? What made you finally say something? He let out a breath. I saw you today, at the pool. You looked peaceful, like someone who knew her worth, and I realized how long it's been since I looked at you like that. Since I saw you. Silence settled between us. The good kind. The kind that doesn't beg to be filled. I know I've been a lousy son, he added. I looked up. No, you've been a son who forgot. And I let you forget. That's on both of us. He nodded. I'd like to fix things. I'm not sure if we fix it, I said finally, but we can begin again, if it's mutual, if it's real. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out something that made my breath catch. A small photo. Crinkled at the edges. It was Michael. My husband. His father. From a trip we took to the Grand Canyon years ago. He was wearing that ridiculous wide-brim hat he swore made him look like Indiana Jones, standing beside a young Daniel with a protective hand on his shoulder. I was behind the camera, but I remember the moment like it was yesterday. Daniel held it carefully, like it might fall apart. We brought this for the trip, he said, voice thick with emotion, to feel like he was with us. I thought the kids should see the kind of man their grandfather was. I reached out and gently brushed my fingers across the photo. My heart twisted. Old grief rising with new tenderness, but I didn't cry. Not yet. I miss him, I whispered. Me too, Daniel said quietly, more than I let on. That silence between us, it wasn't awkward anymore. It was grounding, like we'd stepped into a sacred space where pretending didn't serve us. I think I forgot what you and Dad built, he added, what you gave us growing up, and I let Melissa's idea of family become mine. I looked up and met his eyes. Then don't forget again. He nodded. I won't. He stood about to leave, but then turned at the door and smirked just a little. Oh, and the motel? Roaches. Melissa had a full meltdown. We ended up sleeping in the rental car for 2 hours before finding a last-minute inn 20 miles away. I raised an eyebrow. Lesson learned? He laughed, sheepish. Big time. When the door closed behind him, I stood there for a moment, tea cooling in my hand, the photo of Michael resting on the table. I let one tear fall, not for sadness, but for relief. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone had truly seen me again.